Now, a special delegation of Israeli Arabs have returned to Israel after an extended trip to America this month. They held a lecture tour on various American college campuses, trying to fight back against anti-Israel prejudice and engage respectfully but firmly with those who proudly support the BDS movement. And they're now back on Israeli soil. With me in studio, Jonathan Elkhoury. Jonathan is a coordinator with the group Reservists of Duty. Sir, thanks so much for being with us. You are an Arab-Israeli delegation. You've traveled to various colleges in New York and Texas this month. I want to ask, what was the reception like? Were you surprised? Were people more open-minded about the conflict, about Israel, than you gave them credit for, or were they pretty close-minded when you met them?
Well, it's really interesting to see the variety of how we were received. At the beginning at Reservists on Duty, we saw that it's really important to pass the message of Israeli minorities, because they always use us, the minorities, to bash and attack Israel, to say that we're not living in a real democracy. We went there to just to expose to them our real lives as minorities living in a democratic state of Israel.
Were people open to the message? Were people willing to listen to your story, or no?
Yeah, that's what's really interesting, because from the opposite side, when we have the anti-Israeli movement, they're not pro-Palestinians, because there's differences between the two. The anti-Israeli movement are not willing to listen to anything we say, especially because when we go there, we go in a title of Israelis, because that's what we are. And we go, some of us who did national service and even military service in our group, because this is eventually what we want to show. We want to show the diversity that we have in Israel with minorities who are part of the Israeli society and are willing and working even here in Israel to make connection between the variety of organizations or communities that we have.
Jonathan, you mentioned the diversity and importance of that to a vibrant, open Israeli society. The new nation-state law, did that make your job harder? The informed group of people, of college students, were they citing the nation-state law and some of their arguments? How do you respond to that?
It's actually really interesting, because even in my group at Reservists on Duty, we have a diversity of opinions surrounding this. Eventually, it doesn't matter what is my personal opinion on that bill. It matters that we have a voice. Some of our participants didn't really went in favor of that bill, but they have their voice and the ability to do so. And when we go abroad, we are trying to pass this clear message that in Israel, there's some internal things that we're going to deal with, and we're dealing with as any other democracy. And abroad, we're going to fight for the name of Israel, because Israel is being attacked again and again. No matter what law we pass, no matter what happens in the Israeli society, there is always a misleading events or news outlets who say things that are wrong about Israel, and we're there to make the message.
What surprised you on this college campus tour? I mean, was there a particular argument or something false that you kept hearing over and over again that you didn't expect to hear?
Well, the amazing thing is always that people don't know that there's Israeli minorities. We are 25% of the Israeli population. And people think that there's always Jews and Palestinians, and that's the differences. Because if we want to be clear, a lot of the Arab member Knesset, when they go abroad, they don't say that they're Israelis. They say that they're Palestinians. So they make this false presentation about life in Israel. And this is like the first thing. For example, I was with Reservists on Duty on an apartheid week at UC Irvine 2 years ago, when we were brutally attacked by physically and verbally attacked by the Student Justice for Palestine, that were sanctioned because of what they did to us with the SSI movement there. And once I went there, they accused me for talking to them in Arabic. They said that I stole their Arabic because they don't know that
you're being
Israel
complicit in the occupation.
I'm like, I'm an Israeli Christian. Like, this is my first language, Arabic. So how can you accuse me of that? And another thing that happened to me in the University of Houston in Texas, that they thought that the Jews are the 20% of the population, because when they claim that there is an apartheid, this is what apartheid means, that the minority is ruling the majority. And
so you have to be respectful, but just lay the facts on the table. Of
course. This is our main job, is to make sure that everyone understands that Israel has an amazing mosaic of cultures and diversity, and we want to show that to the world. Although we have our differences, but it's a democracy, and we're going to do everything in our power in order to protect it.
And find out more about the organization online, Reservists of Duty.